God damn it! I was supposed to bring some tinsel to wrap this fella in, but I have completely forgotten it, so I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Actually, wait, hang on a minute. Let's get this going. That should work well enough.
Read the disclaimer! On the other one, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Greetings, Cybertronians. I'm DrLockdown, and welcome to the 4th annual Legendary Marathon. Yes, indeed, this time I've called in a bit of a favor to hire out this temporary studio thingo to give it that extra bit of class. I want to make sure that this year the Legendary Marathon is better than it's ever been. More interesting releases, better production value, heightened by the fact that I've got a new phone to do all of this stuff and new microphones, so that should all work out pretty well. But of course, it's probably best to not dilly-dally on this sort of thing. Let's get started. And where better to start than at the very beginning, with the line that started it all. G1 Warpath, at first glance, just looks like any other mini-bot. However, it's important to differentiate what kind of mini-bot we're dealing with here, because there are differences between several mini-bots. I mean, this guy, oh, it's just a small guy, doesn't actually know there are certain categories to put him into. Warpath is a 1985 mini-bot. Now, that's important because of the way the mini-bots were designed. First off, let's bring in some of the earlier mini-bots. We've got Gears and we've got Outback. You'll notice that these look a bit more super deformed, and I've actually mentioned the reason why in the Warpath review, the Kingdom Warpath review specifically. The 1984 minibot lineup, I think these two are from 1984. These were super deformed because they were based on the penny races. They were specifically designed to look like those small wind-up toys, whereas figures like Warpath were not. Like, you get rid of these, and you bring in figures like Sea Spray, and you can tell these two are way more cut from the same cloth. So you can see as we started to move across to figures like this, alt modes became a lot more realistic. Now, there is still some of that penny racer DNA in there. For example, this guy has a bit of a bulbous turret at the top here. Nowhere near as bulbous as the Kingdom version, but still not exactly accurate to the original Sheridan. Then again, I don't think the original Sheridan had a red variant to begin with, but I could be wrong. I'm not a tank expert, I'm just pointing out something here. Point is, this guy is more realistic because he is a later mini-boss, when Takara decided, we're not going to bother with Diaclone and Microchange anymore, just going to make things for Transformers instead. And as such, we get a fantastic tank mode. The tank mode is what makes this figure. The detail is immaculate, especially on the top here. You got all this shit on the side that looks fantastic, and they've even given this nice vented detail on the faux silver back here. It's just sort of a light gray. It's not quite Games Workshop way. It has a slight shine to it that kind of gets away from that, and I do appreciate that, thanks to the stone quality they gave it. But it's not like they chromed out any of this, which can be a little bit disappointing to some people. This wasn't chromed on the original version either, which brings me to the fact that this is a reissue. I believe it is the 2020 reissue, if memory serves me correct. Well, I say believe, but I actually googled it beforehand to make sure. I don't know why, but a lot of people seem to get really angry over reissues. They say, oh, it devalues the originals. Yeah, f off, mate. These are toys. Who cares about value? In terms of tank mode, there's not really a lot I can complain about, aside from maybe these bumps at the back here, but they might be accurate to the original. And even if they're not that egregious. Even from the underside, it's completely clean. Like, damn, that is a clean underside of an alt mode. Doesn't even look like it transforms. It just looks like a nice toy tank. Although, to be fair, that can be true of a lot of 1985 and onwards mini-bots. They were very, very well done. And I haven't even gotten to the best part, aside from maybe the Warpath mode, courtesy of that toy guy. Now, the best part is the rotating turret. My word, that is lovely. And it's nicely tolerant. Like, I know this is a reissue, so if you buy an actual vintage copy, it might be a bit loosey-goosey. But if you're getting the reissue, it's just magnificent. Nice and swivelly. Absolutely wonderful. Get some lovely poses with that. And look, and while we're here, you can even see they've molded in, I think that's a cockpit, but I don't know what they call it. And honestly, I don't care. It's a fantastic mini-bot tank mode with a lovely rub symbol. Let's do this. Come on, mate. Come on. Show me the Autobot symbol. Show it on camera, please. There we go. You can see the Autobot symbol there. That'll do it. That'll do it. So, for some quick size comparisons, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, a standard Core Class figure. Yes, we're not using Legends figures anymore. It's time to get a bit more modern. A standard War for Cybertron Micromaster, and Crumb, Crumbs. And in terms of dimensions, he is approximately 6.7 centimeters by 3 centimeters by 3.5 centimeters. But before we move on to the transformation, I thought, given that this is the original, I would kind of show some of the different versions we've had over the years. We've of course got the two most recently reviewed versions, with the Kingdom version and the Generations version, both of which are fantastic in their own right. The Universe 2008 version, or rather the Henkei edition of such, who may be getting a review soon, we'll have to see. And of course Iron Factory Burning Slug, who I personally think tanks all of these, no pun intended. Like, this right here is easily the best Warpath of the bunch, hands down. And with that, it's time to transform it. Nice and simple because it is a G1 minibot. First thing you want to do is separate it at that part there. Pull out the arms like so. Bring up this section here and push in the turret. And bring up the feet and bring up the head. And yeah, this robot mode is not great. Even by the standards of the time, this is probably one of the weakest robot modes the minibot lineup has presented. Don't ever let anyone tell you that G1 figures can't be criticized, because they can. Like, let's bring in Sea Spray for a comparison. Sure, they both have the platform feet, but you can see the arms are much better proportioned. The chest section is way better proportioned. I don't really care that Warpath's got his head on a slab, but that thing really should be much further back. This is a wonky ass minibot. Just no way around it. I wish I could give a lot of this stuff a pass, but even for the time, it wasn't the best. I've spoken with people who grew up with G1 and people who had this toy as a kid, and even they thought it was naff when they were kids. So it's not just me being harsh on this figure, it's genuinely not the most popular minibot. It's primarily the cartoon that people had a connection with, which makes people love this figure. But you can tell they definitely took a lot of, well, liberties taking the design in the cartoon, because oh boy, this is some G1 Ironhide levels of bonkers here. I'm not going to complain about the platform feet. That affects a bunch of G1 figures. It's very common. Not going to complain about the backpack or the butt pack either. It's just kind of is what it is. Nor the kibble on the back here. That's kind of become a staple of Warpath. But the arms, why are that? No, come on. Also, he's kind of wearing a frill, you know, like those frills maids seem to wear on their heads. It's just kind of got that kind of thing going on. I don't know what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about. This is a naff robot mode. Yeah, it kind of looks better with that back there than with it all the way out there. It could be way worse, but oh boy, this is a bit of a stinker. But hey, that's kind of why people love Warpath. Not because it's good, but because it's memorable. He's one of those G1 toys that is so naff, but people love him for that. And I can kind of dig it. If you're kind of going for a really good G1 toy, not really the best to get. But if you just think this is absolute bonkers and you want to get it for that reason, then yeah, go for it. Now for a size comparison, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, a standard Core Class figure, a standard War for Cybertron Micromaster, and Crumbs. And in terms of dimensions, thanks to the way his arms fold out, he is now 3.5 centimeters by 7.5 centimeters. And of course, finishing it off with a comparison of all the Warpaths I have in the G1 style. And before you ask, no, I don't have the Combiner Wars version. I'm not interested. It doesn't even have the tank barrel chest. What's the point of getting it? Why not just get Megatron and then be done with the mold in that way? Still reckon that Burning Slug is the best one, just the sheer beef on him. Absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend. But all of these are fine figures. Except for the G1 version here, he's not really fine. He is awfully naff, but that's part of his charm. You don't get him because he's good. You don't get him because he's a brilliant G1 toy. You get him because he's Warpath. You get him because he's stupid and dumb. And of course, the other thing that you get him for, which I have to mention, the tank mode. The absolutely amazing tank mode. Probably one of the best tank modes we've seen in the franchise. It still holds up today in terms of vehicle modes, but I guess that's kind of what happens in G1. They make amazing alt modes, it's just what they do. So yeah, you get this for the alt mode, or you get this for how naff it is. It's one or the other. You don't expect a completely good experience going in, but if you know what you like going in, and you think it's still pretty nifty, well, knock yourself out. G1 Warpath is not the best minicon, but he does have some positives, as well as some negatives of course, but every figure on the planet does. The negatives are quite simple. It is that abysmal robot mode. It's just not well designed even by minibot standards. It's very weirdly proportioned. I mean, I'll give you this, it's more accurate than a lot of minibots, but still, it's not really a minibot you'd buy for the robot mode. The positives primarily lie in its vehicle mode, which, yeah, kind of applies to most G1 figures. But especially for this guy, because as a tank, he is absolutely adorable. Probably one of the best alternate modes the minibot line has to offer. And I don't exaggerate, I can't really think of any better ones. I mean, I guess Beachcomber could be better, but he's got rubber tires, so that means they're probably going to be broken on the aftermarket. And the first wave are all super deformed, so I don't don't think that puts him in the running. This tank is extremely realistic, covered in mechanical detail, it has a beautiful color scheme, and yeah, could use some paint on the treads, but still, it's a pretty damn good mini-bot figure. Wait, actually, now I remember, Sea Spray's a bit better, just a bit better. Getting back on topic for a bit though, I can see why kids were so taken to this figure back in the 80s. A lot of people have nostalgia for this one, more so than a lot of mini-bots. Of course, excluding Bumblebee, because everyone's nostalgic for Bumblebee. But if you're trying to get into G1 figures, this isn't the worst place to start. If you're into it, then just go for it. I can't think of anything that would dissuade you, so jump right in. But tomorrow's release is the exact opposite. It's a release that's probably not best to get into right away. You need to know what the line is all about, and you need to know the figure's shortcomings. And there's a reason I don't actually have it on me at the moment, because tomorrow, we're tackling this guy. And I think you can see what I mean already, but I'll see you tomorrow.